They say the first cut is the deepest. But for me, the cuts didn't start to get deep till much later. In fact, my first experience with self-harm didn't even leave a scar. I swiped the end of a paperclip across my arm a few times until the surface of my skin broke just enough for blood to appear. I was 13 years old and somehow became prime enemy number one with regards to my classmates. I still, to this day, have absolutely no idea what I did to bother everyone so much. Because anytime I tried to ask one of my friends what the problem was, I was just told everything is fine. Despite the constant hateful messages I received online and the neglect I was presented with every single day at school, I was made to believe that it was all in my own head. I honestly don't know what compelled me to hurt myself in the first place. All I know was that I was in pain, and that tiny little scrape somehow made me feel better. Over the next few years, things sort of seemed to be getting better, and I didn't really think about hurting myself again. I had gotten into the school that I had dreamed of. I moved away from home for the first time and got to start a whole new life in a brand new city. And I ended up becoming friends with a really great group of people who were nothing like the kids who picked on me when I was younger. But then in my second year of university, I began to have that feeling again. That feeling of being an outcast, like I just didn't belong. But this time it was different. No one was mean to me or purposely made me feel left out. In fact, I was invited to almost every social event. And yet, it seemed as though my invitations simply came as a courtesy. Pity almost, because if I wasn't with them, I would be alone. I struggled to find my worth and importance in the group. So much so that my feelings of inadequacy completely consumed my days and would keep me up for hours every single night. I became extremely anxious in group settings, but feared the idea of being alone. I was heartbreakingly sad, and I absolutely hated it. I hated how emotional I was, how crying myself to sleep became a routine. I hated that I cared so much what people thought of me, but mostly what I thought of myself. When I tried addressing the problem to my friends, I was met with the same response I had always gotten. Everything is fine. But if everything was fine, then why was I still so upset? I felt as though my sadness was irrational and that if I was going to be a sobbing mess, I needed a real reason for it. I found myself faced with a box cutter I had used to unpack earlier that year and was reminded of how that one time I made myself feel better. The thought process didn't last long before I was pulling the blade vertically down the side of my wrist, and it was nothing like the paperclip. And as blood started to drip down my arm, I became strangely calm. I fell into a bit of a routine, feeling sorry for myself, then cutting myself to feel anything other than what was going on in my head. And in the span of roughly 2 months, I had made 22 cuts all over my body. And one day, it was just too much. That day, when it was too much, I experienced my first real panic attack. Now, that may sound kind of anticlimactic for you, but in that moment, for me, everything just stopped. And it didn't seem like it would ever start moving again. I can't stress enough that my actions were done with absolutely no intention of ending my life. Cutting became my way of coping with my anxiety and self-loathing. And I thought I was in control, but the reality is there's no controlling something like this. To my friends at the time, thank you for trying. At first it seemed like no one cared or wanted to help, but I understand that none of us were really in a position of knowing what to do or who to go to. To my parents, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not coming to you sooner, and I'm sorry for making you go through this. My choice to not tell you when the problem started was driven by the fear that maybe then you wouldn't see me as me anymore. So thank you for still letting me be me. I want so badly to be able to tell you all that I no longer think about cutting myself, that the thought doesn't cross my mind several times every day, but I'd be lying. It's almost as if a part of my brain has been scarred with the idea that I need to justify my pain with something tangible, as if maybe I deserve it. It's really hard to stop hating yourself when you've been so good at it for so long. But please know I'm trying. I can't say that I'll never cut again because I simply don't know what will happen in the future. But each day that I can go to bed cut-free, it's progress. I've come to accept that not every day is going to be a good one, and in fact, most of them aren't. I still cry a lot and at times feel completely isolated, even in a room crowded with people that I love. But I'm no longer angry with myself. My scars are a permanent reminder of the damage that I've done. But they also remind me that wounds can heal.